Ethan? Sound good? Good. So there's no sound in here, or y'all can hear fine? Oh, that it's off. That thing. Never trust a drummer with a microphone. Welcome to the launch of another issue of Hindsight Creative Nonfiction. I'm Jay Ellis in the program for Writing and Rhetoric here at CU Boulder. Thanks for joining us in person, or for anybody who couldn't make it and are watching our streaming video and don't already know, CU means the University of Colorado. As founding faculty advisor of our creative nonfiction journals, I'm proud of what my students have put together for this year's print issue of the parent journal we publish every spring, Hindsight. Since we started 12 years ago with another title, and we now also produce a themed journal, Changing Skies, every fall, and just this semester also printed an offspring of Hindsight, Fawn, which you'll see here on your tables there, kind of rare, so far available only in print. Hindsight's Volume 5 is actually our 18th print publication since 2013. Still produced entirely by undergraduates, the writing and art in all our journals now includes a mix of CU students with contributors from around the world. I want to thank my colleagues in the program for Writing and Rhetoric for their support, and our director, Laurie Grease, for curricular help with Hindsight as part of the Writing and Public Engagement minor. Mindy Slaughter, Linda Nasita, and Chris Benson in the PWR front office help keep us publishing. And we are also supported by Tim O'Neill with the University Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, CU's Center for Student Involvement, and the Arts and Sciences Student Government Funding Board. All our beautiful books are printed by George Sawicki and his staff at Minuteman Press. We'll soon hear from students and other writers published in Volume 5, both live and by video. But I first have to tell you how hard this semester's staff has worked to publish 2 books in 4 months, both Hindsight and Fawn, while also taking care of our contributors. Helping to lead that staff, we've been lucky to have a new editor-in-chief, Angelina Kondrat, to tell you more about the journal from a student's perspective and to introduce our special keynote. Here's Angelina.
Hi guys, thank you for coming and celebrate the launch of Hindsight Volume 5. To the team in front of me, I wanted to thank you sincerely for making my experience here incredibly fulfilling, but also for working hard always, and I appreciate working with you guys every day. Creative nonfiction bridges the gap between fact and feeling, inviting readers to engage with the world around them through compelling narratives rooted in truth and vulnerability. In platform writing that weaves technical experience with personal experience, Hindsight publishes voices often overlooked and perspectives that challenge assumptions, deepen empathy, and reveal the realities of being human. Every issue of Hindsight seeks to elevate the richness of this form. Our genre is not known to play it safe. We encourage you to crave and share stories that ask hard questions, to say what others won't or can't, write it down, shape the chaos. Creativity opens a mind, and when we continue to celebrate and protect that spirit, as demonstrated in Hindsight 5, what you'll see is a product of mind set free, and it's a beautiful thing. Our keynote speaker, Allison Hawthorne-Deming, is the author of 7 books of poetry, 5 books of nonfiction, and editor of 2 anthologies about nature and the American West. Among her many awards are Guggenheim Fellowship, an NEA Fellowship, and Stanford Stegner Fellowship. You can also find her work in the Norton Book of Nature Writing and Best American Science in Nature Writing. She is Regis Professor Emerita at the University of Arizona, and we have 2 of her books available for purchase in the back table over there. Please go check them out. They're amazing. And with that, please welcome Allison Hawthorne-Deming.
Thanks. And congratulations. I was blown away when I saw how beautiful this journal was, and particularly congratulations to the writers who are in this issue. It's really impressive what you're doing and the experience you're getting in all aspects of editing and publishing and writing is really invaluable. So I know you're lucky, but I'm telling you, you're really lucky. So for my keynote, I am going to read an essay, a short essay that I wrote yesterday I had something else planned, but things happen, particularly when you're in a new place and inspiration comes. And so I thought, I'll just take the risk and read the brand new thing because you deserve that. And it will allow me to mention at the end a couple of things about creative nonfiction that may perhaps be helpful to you, and that the essay may reverberate around those things. So this essay is called, I Wake Up in 3 a.m. Weeping. Groundsmen ride giant mowers over the golf course grass. Crabapple trees bloom into pink cumulus clouds. I know it's hard to believe this was yesterday because look what's happening, but honest, yesterday this is what it looked like. Grape hyacinths pop up in a half circle in the yard of a new house, new to the owner, who knew nothing about what spring would bring when she moved in during the summer. Someone who came before her had planned this, an arc of tiny purple flowers, loudmouths against the mum-dun grass of winter. Perennials planted during the fall spear out of their mulch, a sign of survivance. That's the word Gerald Vizenor coined to describe the resistance of indigenous people against all they have suffered and continue to suffer. Nature too operates in resistance against what we inflict upon her. I'm visiting Denver to give a reading from my 2 new books at Trident Bookstore in Boulder, meet faculty and students at CU who publish the outstanding literary journal Hindsight, and to attend the opening at the Denver Art Museum of Kent Monkman's exhibition, History is Painted by the Victors. Monkman goes way beyond resistance in reimagining how the history of North America is told. As a two-spirit indigenous artist from Canada, he challenges the acceptive narratives of conquest. He recasts the indigenous voice as victor by being the one to tell history's story, while at the same time evoking painterly references to the masters of Euro-American art, Catlin, Bierstadt, Vermeer, Rubens. Picasso and Pegasus and some centaurs make cameos in one of his complex tableaus. One painting places Monkman's alter ego, Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, mounted on a glorious black horse posing in a Rothko color field. A particularly moving image is set in a residential school, a girl rising from bed to stand on tiptoes in the light streaming Vermeer-like through a small window where a sparrow sits, the bird a shapeshifter presence of Miss Chief. These unsettling paintings confront the violence and suffering of history on this continent. They are made to provoke. They can make a viewer weep and they can make a viewer laugh at the wacky juxtaposition of images colliding from different historical periods. That's the strange lightness that is at play with the darkness of the subject matter. Gravity and levity counterposed to give Monkman the victor's voice. It's work I mean to come back to time and again, as I will his work on indigenous knowledge that will help me in my current project, writing about new relationships between art and science. And of course, I accept any invitation to the Denver area because both my daughter and one of my grandsons live in the region. They do good work. Lucinda as Dean of the College of Arts and Media at CU Denver, and Lincoln at Gramagrass and Livestock, where he works managing a cattle herd to provide grass-fed beef and help restore wasted grasslands. But I woke up at 3 a.m. weeping. It was the first time I felt myself in such grief about the nation. I had been outraged and fearful and disbelieving at the speed of our descent into autocracy, at the cruelty, the censoring and suppression of science, the disregard for suffering, the dismantling of protections for our health and environment, the arrogant lawlessness. But it was grief that woke me, and I knew right away what was haunting my sleep. Of all the assaults on the law, the Constitution, fair play, and common decency. The images coming back from the El Salvador concentration camp are the most horrific. I feel shame that my nation is committing this atrocity. No due process, no accountability, no communication allowed, with men swept off the streets, stripped and crammed into cages, then forced to sit, shackled and slammed together like mere items, packed in a box for shipping, lined up like that on the prison's concrete floor, in their underpants, arms bound behind them, shaved heads bowed. Debasement is the point. Cruelty is the point. United States tax dollars support this atrocity. Those in power who would erase our nation's violent history are now committed to repeating the atrocities that made us collectively vow never again. And so it is right to wake up weeping at 3 a.m, even though spring is emerging all around me, and to say as publicly as I can that all of this cruelty and lawlessness is wrong, and we will stop it. Dandelions break up through the grass, yellow crowns defying the oppressive green of the golf course. Each flower looks like a golden crown, but not the crown of a king, rather a populace of crowns, a democracy of crowns. No matter how hard the groundsmen try to kill the dandelion plants, their roots find a way to spread. My father used to pay me a nickel per dandelion if I'd pry them from the lawn. It was hard, dispiriting work for a small child. My father never went in for the poisons. So the dandelions persisted. And my French grandmother, who lived with us, harvested new leaves from the spring dandelions to make a salad with hard-boiled egg and her homemade French dressing. This is a walking essay, composed on a saunter along miles of greenway cutting through the suburbs, passing backyards of family homes, my favorite one being one with 5 bears sculpted with a chainsaw on the tops of 5 tall cottonwood stumps. The bears are watching over the neighborhood, one of them leaning as if to catch a closer look at what's going on. The air sparkles with birdsong. American robin and European starling are here, house finch and red-winged blackbird. Another quarter mile and song sparrow joins with spotted towhee and American goldfinch. I can't see them, but I know they're here because my Merlin app can tell them by their songs. I stopped to photograph a pair of tall cottonwoods on the edge of the meadow, the snow-capped front range in the distance, beehive boxes lined up under the trees. A woman walking 2 dogs stops and asked, "Are you shooting the owls?" "Owls?" I asked. "Yes, 2 adventure owls," she says, the name she's come up with for the young ones venturing from their nest. See, there's the nest, a gaping knothole with perimeter well worn from the comings and goings of the birds. "Great horned owls?" I ask. "Yes." She says the young are already about 1.5 feet tall. The other day, she'd seen the big owl, talons out, make a dive for a fox on that lawn. Gave the fox quite a scare. I stay to stare and hope to catch a glimpse. Another woman stops. "You see the owls?" She'd seen them yesterday. Her husband, binocs to eyes, has spotted one of the young perched on a limb. "Right there," he points. We try to follow his line of sight, but spotting a gray bird on the gnarly gray bark of the cottonwood takes some patience. And then the tweed of feathers on the owl's back jumps into view. And there it sits, and sits, and sits, and sits, exemplar of patience, meditating on the view. A long-tailed bird sweeps down onto a twig at the treetop. Was that a magpie, I ask? The cadence in my voice saying something about my fondness for the bird. Yeah, that's a magpie, he says. The cadence in his voice saying something about his distaste for the bird. I love them, I say. His wife says he hates them. The man gives me a gentling look, apologetic. It's their squawk, he said. It's just not a pretty song. I take his reply as a moment of kindness, a gesture toward mutual understanding, a small thing in the scope of our national nightmare. Still, I take the moment into my heart and hold it as a stay against grief. This is my sauntering song. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much. So two things I want to give you if they go into your little kit of how the heck do I write creative nonfiction, memoir, essay, or even literary journalism. One is I think all of these forms of creative nonfiction are about balancing these two polarities, the self and the world, right? And right now the world is confusing. It's hard. It's painful. In here is kind of a mess for most of us, right? So the essayist or the memoirist is always trying to find out through language, can I find some equilibrium between these extremes? And I think that's kind of what happened to me taking that walk, you know, because here I had the immediacy of the day and it was beautiful, it was full of spring and it was engaging and I was totally engrossed. And then I remembered, I woke up at 3 a.m. crying, horrified by these images and horrified. And so how in the world do I find some balance with which I can live and feel all right about myself and my time in the world and figure out what I'm supposed to do next with myself. So I think thinking about self and world, if you find yourself writing, you think, oh my God, all I do is talk about myself, I'm so boring. What's happening in the world that you haven't been paying attention to? You bring that into counterbalance. Similarly, if you're writing something that's a little more journalistic and out there about the world and you're thinking, nobody wants to hear what I have to say about this, well, what's the story from the self that gives you the authority as a person who has had an experience that helps you understand this thing in the world? So I think that's helpful to think about, and I hope it is for you. Self and world, how do we find an equilibrium? Language helps us. The other thing is, I think all memoir and creative nonfiction comes out of questions. And the question I somewhat articulated it about this essay, you know, the question is, how do I find some peace with this nightmare and with the beauty of the world that I am still in love with every day of my life? And how do I find that balance? And maybe an essay does that for a moment. Then we can go back to being confused, troubled, worried, in love with the world, all those things. But if we hold it in the essay, it gives us a vessel that maybe makes us feel that we have something to give others that may help them in their most confused moments. So questions, self and other, go forth and keep writing. You are talented, wonderful people, and I'm so happy to be with you here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you again, Allison, for that wonderful keynote speech. We are so fortunate to have you here with us tonight. My name is Michaela Malaro, and I am the managing editor of this edition of Hindsight. Though this is my 4th semester working on the journal, this is my 1st semester as managing editor. And to be honest, when it began, I was very nervous. I did not know how to manage a mostly new staff, or any staff at all. But I'm really happy to say that everyone made my job very incredibly easy, and I'm so proud of what this team has produced. Much of this edition of Hindsight centers around language, and to be fair, that can to some extent be said of any piece or collection of writing. But the work we've assembled here goes far beyond that basic idea. These pieces speak to the duality of language, One tongue can be stifling in its insufficiency, while another transcendent in its breadth. Certain words and ways of speaking can be used to confine, while others can be used to subvert and defy oppressive systems. There are multiple bilingual pieces in this edition, including one that will be read tonight live by CU's very own Joaquin Salinas. And though our monolingual works often underscore the power of language, these pieces tend to interrogate it more directly. Myself and the rest of the staff spend an inordinate amount of time working with words, but I, and I can't speak for everyone else, work exclusively in one language. It's the only one I'm fluent in, and despite its shortcomings, sometimes it feels to me like the entire world is written in English, and obviously that is not true. Language is incredibly powerful. It tells us what is proper, what is degenerate, what should be promoted, and what should be ignored, and it often does so implicitly. We read and listen without realizing that we are being, word by word, taught how to think. I hope that in reading this edition and in hearing our speakers tonight, you all are moved to reflect on the language that defines your worlds and how you might challenge and cross the mental barriers it creates. Now, please welcome Jenny Hughes as she reads an excerpt from her piece, Mormon Light. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am really pleased to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I drove all the way here yesterday from Minnesota, and only one piece of my car fell off. So I feel like that's a win. And we're parked outside, and we don't have a permit, so I'm hoping it'll still be there when we're done tonight. But if we're not, I'm sure Jay will give me a ride back. So not too worried about it. My piece is called Mormon Light. It's about the dynamics between this fundamentalist Mormon church that we've kind of heard about on the news versus the Mormon church that I grew up in, which is kind of a lighter version of it, and kind of my experiences growing up in that situation. Picture a 10-year-old girl lying on the couch in her family's upstairs living room, reading a book. The cushions shift as a figure drops down onto the opposite end of the couch. She doesn't look away from her book as she instinctively draws her knees up toward her body, effectively putting the center cushion between herself and the man at the other end. The touch comes as a surprise then when she feels rough fingers slide under her toes and caress the pad of her foot. "Tickle, tickle," he says. She snaps her book shut and swings her feet to the floor in such a swift movement that it startles him, and he holds his hands up defensively. "Whoa there," he laughs. "You need to relax." She rolls herself off the couch and runs to the safety of her bedroom. Her heart races. She watches the bedroom door, eyes wide, until she hears her mother calling her to come and eat. I have a cousin who is a few years older than me who chose to pursue a career on the police force. I've always idolized her a bit. Long, thick, dark hair, infectious smile, brilliantly cynical sense of humor. My deepest admiration, though, is for her generosity and compassion. I once flew to visit her at her home in Arizona, and when she picked me up from the airport, she spotted an older man sitting on the floor, his back against the wall. I didn't even see him. I had to stop and turn around when I noticed that she had left my side and beelined for the man. She immediately asked if he were comfortable and needed any help. In a moment, she had located a chair and helped him settle into it. She made sure that he was well situated before we continued on toward the parking ramp. This cousin had grown up, like most of my family, as a member of the Church of Christ. Her parents spent a great deal of time as missionaries in Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, and had opened their cucumber farm in Rosemount, Minnesota, to many Hmong immigrants. When her family decided to make a permanent move to Honduras, she chose to stay behind with another aunt and uncle in Missouri. Many years later, she revealed that someone living on the family farm had sexually abused her repeatedly while she was very young. I don't know if her parents suspected that something was wrong or if they were so busy doing their good works that they had no idea of what was happening in their own home. Maybe my uncle somehow missed the fact that his daughter would freeze up whenever he sat on the edge of her bed to talk to her. Maybe my aunt didn't realize that one of their guests had come from her daughter's room and not the bathroom, because both rooms were at the end of a long, dark hallway. I can't say whether this contributed to my cousin's decision to become a police officer, but through it all, despite everything, she never lost her faith. Thank you.
I just remembered it's me. Give me like 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. Hi, everybody. It's so lovely to see you all. I'm Clara, and I'm the assistant managing editor of this edition of Hindsight. I also love to play photographer. So if you see me running around, that's what's happening there. Okay. It's so lovely to see you all again. Whether or not you've contributed to the journal or just like a local literary fan, we love to have you. We love to talk about creative nonfiction here. Personally, I got to talk about creative nonfiction a couple weeks ago when a few other Hindsight members and I had the honor of going to LA to speak at the 2025 Association of Writers and Writing Programs conference, which was super duper fun. While there, we were not only able to explore the city, connect with writers and presses from all over the country, and attend panels and discussions about important literary topics, but we were also able to give out over 400 units of Hindsight, Changing Skies, and Fawn, which is the little book that you have on your tables. These were all filled with incredible creative nonfiction that we put a lot of time into putting together. We loved getting to talk to both experienced and creative nonfiction writers and new experimenters with the genre, as well as all sorts of people in between. It was truly an unforgettable experience, and I'm incredibly thankful to all of my other Hindsight staff members for their work on the journal this semester and getting us to AWP. Next up, we've got a video from Melanie Smith with reading In Lawns We Trust, which is one of my favorite pieces from this journal. So I hope you all enjoy it. Let's get right on into that. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you for your patience. Ren, how about you, if you're ready, you can introduce Joaquin, and then we can go on, and then we'll see if we get the video or not. Sound good? Mix up the set a little bit. So whose laptop are we going to use?
I'm the distraction. All right, so we're gonna skip Melanie's reading for a quick moment as we figure out our technical difficulties, and we'll have Joaquin here read next, but I do have a little speech. My name is Ren Hotzfeld, and I have the privilege here to talk to anyone here who may be interested in joining the staff next semester. As you may know, Hindsight is a student-run journal, so we've got our Professor Jay, who runs the class and, watches over us, make sure we don't burn down any buildings. But all in all, we put together the journals from start to finish. We do the editing, the art direction, online stuff. Everything is student-run. I am the art director personally. I take all the fantastic art we receive from people all over the world, and I pick some pieces that really go well with the writing that we receive and decide to put in whatever journal we're creating. As an artist myself, I understand the excitement of being published, and I'm glad I can give artists a chance to feel that joy and the opportunity to share their creations in a print journal. Everything looks so good in there. Without all the art we receive, our journal would be far more bland. So thank you everyone for submitting and allowing us to publish your works. I'm highly grateful to be a part of this team, and I love working with everyone who's on the staff. I messed up. Hardworking, considerate, passionate people, and I'd love to see new faces on our staff next semester, maybe the semester after, you can join whenever. We welcome anyone and everyone regardless of your year in school, and we have staff positions that deal with editorial or art, marketing, business, or more. Feel free to chat with any one of us on staff, maybe who you've seen up here. There's business cards on your table that have a little QR code. There's business cards in the back of the book as well that you can scan and look at our website and get a feel for what we do as well. Now we have a live reading of Somos Más Americanos by CU's very own Joaquin Salinas.
Thank you. The title of my piece, for those who don't know, comes from a song by Los Tigres del Norte, titled Somos Más Americanos, so I hope you all enjoy. Y si no mente la historia, aquí se sentó en la gloria, la poderosa nación, entre guerreros valientes, indios de dos continentes, mezclados con español. When asking my mom about our heritage, I learned that my abuela, though she was born in the States, comes from a long line of Spanish immigrants on her father's side, while also having indigenous roots from her mother's. However, my abuelo, on the other hand, who is an immigrant himself, came from the Mexican state of Chihuahua, near the U.S. border. He came to the U.S. when he was just 17 years old in order to provide for his family back home in Mexico. When asking my dad about our heritage, similar to my abuelo, I learned that my grandma and my grandpa were also the first in the family to migrate from Mexico to the United States in 1970 after getting their passports. My grandma was born in the city of Valle Hermoso, Tamaulipas, while my grandpa was born in Doctor Arroyo, Nuevo Leon. They came to the U.S. in order to have a better life for their children. I now have a better idea of my own personal heritage, but that's not enough. if I'm to truly understand myself and who I am, I have to look at more than just my family history. I have to look at the history of my home country, Mexico. Nos escaparon sin dinero las aguas del Rio Bravo, y nos quitaron a Texas, Nuevo México, Arizona y Colorado. También voló California y Nevada. Con Utah no se llenaron. El estado de Wyoming también nos lo arrebataron. Yo soy la sangre de indio, soy latino, soy mestizo. Somos de todos colores y de todos los edificios. Y si contamos los siglos, a quien la duela al vecino. Somos más americanos que todititos los gringos. I know of the legends that are the Aztec and Mayan empires. I know the colonization of the Spanish that brought an end to this empire in 1521 and result in a rule for over 100 years. I know the priest Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla, who called for revolution against the Spanish in 1810 that would lead to a war for independence that would finally be won in 1821. I know of the great empire that Mexico once was, stretching from modern-day Oregon all the way to modern-day Panama. But what I never knew was that this once great empire fell after something known as the Mexican-American War, a war that resulted in the taking of over 500,000 square miles of Mexican territory from the Rio Grande all the way to the Pacific Ocean. The United States had just won in blood the territories of Texas, Nuevo Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, California, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, and parts of Oregon. Thank you all.
Long cord. Hello. Thank you again for that wonderful excerpt, Joaquin. I would like to take another moment to extend my gratitude and appreciation for everyone who has contributed to the print edition of the journal, friends near and far, and the family we created together on the staff I'm Sebastian Malauson, the assistant editor-in-chief, or as some people know me, Angelina's email writer. It's a riveting position. Might be open after, by the time this is done. And I have the privilege of working on the journal for 3 semesters now. Hindsight Creative Nonfiction produces 2 journals every year. Our mother title, Hindsight, in the spring, and Changing Skies, Writing Through the Climate Crisis in the fall. Hindsight, the journal title, is an internationally recognized journal that accepts submissions year-round in the form of poetry, artwork, and prose, so long as it falls within the genre of creative nonfiction. Changing Skies is more or less the same. However, it has a focus on eco-literature, which involves themes such as the interconnectedness of life, environmental crisis and human responsibility, and the characterization of nature as a teacher, as a mirror, and as the sacred. Although we are here to celebrate Hindsight, I ask you to please look forward to our production and launch next fall of our next title, Changing Skies 4, where we will have more groundbreaking works of literature, beautiful photographs, probably 10 of them are going to be by Daniel Workman, and moments to hold close, both to our hearts and to our earth. So once again, thank you for everything. And I'm going to have a quick interjection here, and we're going to play Melanie Smith's reading of In Lawns We Trust. And then I would like to introduce Kade Yoshioka, author of Gogatsu Ningyo, followed shortly by Kevin Brown, which is also a virtual reading, author of Reading Across the Abyss.
My name is Melanie, and I'm reading to you from my essay, In Lawns We Trust. Genesis 1:28. God said to Adam and Eve, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. To some suburban dwellers, God's commandment from Genesis seems to mean to rule over anything that lands on the ground, including leaves, pine needles, seeds, buds, petals, feathers, twigs, and bark. I live in suburbia and have a neighbor of this faith living immediately next door. He is devoted to a Sunday ritual. Almost every weekend, barring rain or snow, he dons his headphones, lights a cigarette, and revs up the leaf blower strapped to his back. Then he proceeds to sweep every inch of his yard, his driveway, his neighbor's driveway, and part of the street. His property is less than 1/4 of an acre. Leaf blowing should take him about 10 minutes, given that he does it so regularly. But he is often out there for 2 hours or more, disrupting the tranquility of a sunny afternoon with the insistent noise of a gas engine. It's horrid and inconsiderate, but it's also emblematic, I think, of a deeper American problem, and that is our disconnection from the natural world and our belief that all of it, trees, flowers, insects, and wildlife, is our dominion and needs to be contained, controlled, and exiled. We are colonizers in the ever-expanding promised land of suburbia. A leaf blower is to my neighbor as essential an implement as a covered wagon was to the so-called pioneers. Weed whackers, lawn mowers, hedge trimmers, chain link fencing, pesticide, and driveway sealant are others, and there are more. 2 years ago, I found my neighbor standing in the middle of my front yard after dark, suited up as if he were chasing a bear. It was November, and I had just scattered vetch and clover seeds for a winter cover crop, trying to undo some of the salt damage brought by snowplows. He used his leaf blower to send nearly every last seed into the street. That was the night I told him to keep himself and his machine away from my yard. I gave him a pass on the absent apology. He might have thought he was doing the single woman next door a favor. But that hasn't stopped him since then from regularly blasting everything within an inch of me. There's a terrible cost to the weekend warrior with a leaf blower and a container of Roundup. All those incandescent, over-fertilized leaf and flower-free lawns are one reason we are losing pollinators. Some enterprising film student should hook a tiny camera to the back of a bee and follow it as it flies in search of something edible. That bee will likely fly over unappetizing acres of bright green suburban food deserts, patches of monoculture decorated with mulch and store-bought peonies instead of tall grasses and bee balm and sunflowers. Without flowers, bees starve. In lawns we trust.
Hi, my name is Katie Yoshioka. Thank you so much for having me. Before I get started, just want to say it's an absolute honor to have my poetry in with Hindsight and this incredible journal that has come together in this past semester. This is actually my very first professional publication with any journal, so I, as a aspiring writer, am very, very thrilled. I'd like to talk a little bit about the form. This particular form is called a haibon. It's a traditional Japanese form that contains and combines prose and a haiku at the very end. And so in that way you can kind of get a little bit into the really beautiful language of poetry and a little bit of prose. Gogatsuyo ningyo at my sister's baby shower. When my nephew has grown tall into his manliness, teach him of ancestry and paper and warriors. Tell him you're proud of the man he's become. Tell him you can't wait for him to give you great-grandchildren. Give this box to your newborn grandson when he is born. It's a soldier box for a warrior to carry your bloodline. Lift the black lacquer lid and raise the little samurai from his confinement. Ensure paper folds are crisp and fabric is laid correctly. Sit him atop the box to guard your flesh and blood. You smile at me, your faggoty son, resent me, snow during spring. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Brown, and these are the first few paragraphs of my nonfiction piece, Reading Across the Abyss. I heard an interview with Zadie Smith on NPR where she talked about why she writes. At one point, she said that she wants to avoid the void, though she might have worded her response differently, perhaps abyss instead of void. Essentially, writing is a way to pass the time and not worry about mortality, among other issues. Just a day or two later, I read a story from Colorado Springs about Mark Jones, a man spending his retirement making his house into a type of temple, as the article said, honoring rock and rollers from the 1980s, especially Def Leppard. Jones thinks he's put more than 10,000 hours into his collection. Near the end of the article, he comments, "It'll never be through. If it's done, then I got nothing to do. I'm done, you know. It just keeps me going." My first reaction to Jones's story was one of sadness, especially since the article ended on a note about the growing loneliness in society, as fewer people stopped by to see Jones's collection after the coronavirus pandemic. I couldn't believe that somebody would spend that much time putting together such a collection, even though I certainly enjoy 80s rock, given that I came of age in that decade, when almost nobody will ever see it. Smith's comment, though, reminds me that we all find various pastimes to distract ourselves from the void, from the reality that our time here is quite limited. Even a writer like Smith has little chance of being remembered in 100 years, and I know where I rank in the literary food chain, so I'm not placing my bets on any legacy there. Instead, I spend much of my free time reading writers like Smith, and, for that matter, listening to public radio stories on people like Mark Jones. In fact, I keep a spreadsheet of the books I've read and movies I've seen, a document I began to try to balance out the time I spend reading as opposed to the time I spend watching movies. This year, I'm on pace to read well over 100 books, the first time I've ever hit that milestone. They range from literary fiction, the vast majority, to creative nonfiction, to graphic novels, including some superhero stories. After encountering the interview with Smith and the story about Jones, I've begun to wonder if I'm not just using my reading as one more way to pass the time until I die. A terrific irony, given how much literary fiction centers around the recognition of one's own mortality.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you, Kevin and Melanie. And also, thank you guys for being here with all the snow and everything. That's really quite a struggle for sure. My name is Liam Downey, and although I wear many hats, I am officially one of 2 managing editors for online. I initially joined Hindsight for a myriad of reasons, but I stay on for one critical one, and that is the quality of writing that I get exposed to every single day. It's now my 5th and final semester here with the journal, and that one reason hasn't changed at all. There have been many more reasons why I've stayed, but that core one has continued. I can safely say that contributions from our authors and artists are a big part of why I have been with Hindsight for so long, and is also why I love working online so much. In my time as online, I've been able to publish some amazing pieces by even more amazing writers that are great, but logistically we might not be able to put into our print journal. I've also played a very significant role in ensuring our readers have up-to-date information and work closely with the marketing team to recruit potential new members for Hindsight. By the way, if you're a student, you can go onto our website right now for more information on how to join. This journal has meant a lot to me over the years. I have garnered many skills, been a part of an amazing community, and most importantly, I've been exposed to some of the greatest pieces of art I personally have ever seen. I am eternally grateful for the special moments this journal and its contributors have provided me. And it is an experience I will speak highly of for the rest of my life, probably. But enough from me, though. I'm sure you're bored. It is my great pleasure to introduce Genevieve Barron, reading one of those very pieces that I fell in love with, Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bridge. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gigi, and my piece is about my experience working at an animal hospital this past summer. Dr. Hardigan's next appointment. It's Milo, I said, the words barely audible. Colin's smile dropped and faded into a tight line as he stared at me. His shoulders sagged, and then his gaze dropped to the floor. I watched his eyes slowly close, a quiet battle between professionalism and the sadness that never truly fades. Eventually, we exchanged our favorite stories about Milo to fill the silence, waiting for him and his owner to enter room 6. A few moments had passed, and the corgi and his father arrived at our designated sympathy room. At the same time, Colin and I realized we had an outpatient appointment for some simple pre-lab work, and neither of us would be able to help place the IV catheter. Maybe this is for the better, I thought, as I walked into the waiting room to grab Lulu, a small trembling dog. I could hear Katie, the technician taking care of Milo, talking in room 6. The soft timbre of her voice carried through the hallway with a reassuring tone. "Hi, sweetheart," I murmured, setting her carefully on the treatment table. She pressed her head into my palms, her ears pinned flat against her head. Colin joined me, his movements slower than usual. He grabbed a 22-gauge needle from the tray, carefully twisting it onto the syringe, his jaw tight as he lined up the vials. Suddenly, a familiar tune filled the silence. "Wait," I yelled, right as he was about to palpate her vein. Colin froze, his hands hovering over right above the Chihuahua's neck. He glanced up at me. "What? What is it?" I didn't answer immediately, my head tilting slightly as I strained to listen. The treatment room was otherwise empty, just the two of us there with Lulu. "Do you hear that?" He frowned, his hands dropping to his side. "Hear what?" We both fell silent. For a moment there was nothing until we heard the unmistakable sound of rap music over the speakers. "May I have your attention, please?" I swallowed hard. "Will the real Slim Shady please stand up?" I could imagine the scene in room 6 down the hall. I could see it vividly. Milo, the little Welsh corgi, lying on the ground stretched out, his dad sitting on the couch hunched over, trying to keep it together as tears streamed down his face. Katie kneeling over Milo, gently stroking his fur, and Dr. Hardigan holding the syringe that would soon deliver the final injection. And over it all, I'm Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady. Colin's face fell, the realization hitting him suddenly. We stared at each other until almost simultaneously we burst out laughing. "Imagine being a dog and this is the last song you hear," I muttered between laughs. There was no way this was playing during a euthanasia of all things. My stomach ached from the laughter, and soon the sound gave way to silence. The absurdity of it hit me all over again. The thought of Milo, the sweetest corgi, spending his final moments on Earth with "Will the real Slim Shady please stand up" blaring in the background. Tears formed at the corners of my eyes, but at least they weren't from sadness. Humor can never fully remove the weight of death. But in that moment, laughter helped us from being swallowed up by the heaviness of it all. We were able to make that moment uniquely ours. And after all, maybe Milo was wagging his tail to Eminem somewhere over the Rainbow Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi, for that reading. My name is Ines Durant, and I've had the pleasure of managing submissions in business. Throughout my time at Hindsight, I have learned how it takes the work of so many dedicated people to put this journal together and present it to you. I want to thank all of our amazing authors and artists who have worked with us and trusted us with their work to produce Hindsight 5. Your kindness, creativity, and excitement is the best part of this job. If you are an author or artist, we are currently accepting and reviewing work for our climate change themed journal, Changing Skies. We are always accepting work on a rolling basis for the next Hindsight and as well art. Please enjoy our next reading of Canyon of the Cows by Delia Sherman, the winner of our Beyond Memoir contest.
Hi, I'm Delia, thank you. And this is the beginning of my essay, Canyon of the Cows. On September 7th, 1967, Snippy the Appaloosa was found a quarter-mile from her ranch without any blood left in her body, spotted flesh removed from her neck with what appeared to be surgical precision. The yellowing grass nearby was scorched in circular patches. She rested motionless on the plain, almost peaceful, drained of life, for seemingly no reason at all. I wonder if when they found her, the ranchers crowded around her body and shed tears that marked her dry coat like cool rain in drought. Before the mystery, was there grief? If there was, it was soon replaced by the fervent need for explanation, a desire growing hot like lizard rocks steeped in sun. Of course there was confusion. No one understood what had happened, but they knew that something about the pure white of her exposed bone, the flattened shrubs, the sick, cloying scent in the air, something felt wrong. Made the hair on the backs of their arms stand up, made frightened minds start wondering. The vultures of sensationalism and press were quick to prey. Snippy was the first mutilated animal to gain widespread notoriety in American media. Her name painted the pages of newspapers, and as her story warped, the colors blended together. The paintings became abstract and ominous. Reporters invoked the paranormal. Outlandish details twisted Snippy's tale like an adrenaline-fueled game of telephone. My dad always told me she was a draft horse, heavy with dinner plate hooves and strong muscles and immovable mass. Told me they found her in a tree, impaled by the top of a ponderosa pine like an oversized Christmas star. Said the ranchers in the Badlands were used to this sort of thing with their livestock. That Snippy wasn't anywhere near the first. The guy my dad thought was his dad, Bud, had a ranch out there in the northern part of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota, right on Red Shirt Table. It's not easy to survive the Badlands. The red clay bakes in the summer sun and turns slick in the rain. The water soaks into mud, undrinkable. The Lakota people call it Makosicha, land's bad, hostile, isolated. An area where the very ground itself, with its sharp canyons and sudden buttes, threatens human life, where the delicate layer between our plain and others tends to tear, to melt in the searing heat. And yet, underneath the wavy heat shimmer, the animals thrive. The Badlands are home to black-footed ferrets, bison, bighorn sheep, prairie rattlesnakes, 206 species of birds. The Oglala Lakota people lived there for hundreds of years, cultivating deep relationships with the abundance of nature until settler colonial treaty violations, massacres, and government bomb testing operations hurt the sacred land. Driving through, I craned my neck to see past the protruding rock formations, maybe catch a glimpse of the things my dad said roamed in the Badlands, the spirits and apparitions, the things he said I wouldn't even want to see. Bud, a member of the Oglala tribe, had hundreds of cattle out there on the red clay table. Every now and then, Bud would find cows like Snippy, dead, missing organs, strange lack of blood. It didn't faze him really. He lost a lot of cows like that. And if you want to hear more about those cows, you can read about it in Hindsight. Thank you.
Thanks, Delia. That was great. Thank you to all our student writers. Thank you to our non-student writers, Kate, Kevin, and Melanie, and Jenny for driving all the way down, and Allison for our wonderful keynote. And thanks, everybody, for coming out. Before you leave, don't forget to grab your free books, including Fawn's, if there are any left back there. And Allison's books are also back there on the table. Thanks for coming. Drive safe.
you.